Welcome to the Decleated Football Podcast. I am your host, John Restrepo, here with my co-host, Seamus Dyggan. Seamus, after last week's episode, I need to put my entire size 14 boot in my mouth. I spoke so much crap about the Giants last week, and did they have a way of shutting me up this week? It was unbelievable.
Yeah, you have had to flip-flop quite a few times this year already, which is, what a roller coaster it's been to start the year. But I'm sure of all the roller coasters to be on, this is the one you're more than happy to be on this roller coaster, at least on the trajectory you're on right now.
Yeah, for sure. I might not be the best look for looking back at some of the listening to the podcast, some of the content and stuff. But I will take this every day. If there's something for me to eat my words on, it's gonna be that the Giants suck and the Giants aren't good and all that other stuff. So it was absolutely amazing. And to your point, it really has been a roller coaster. The feeling that this game brought. And, I've been to a ton of Giants games. I've been a season ticket holder for most of the stretch where the Giants have been pretty poor, putting it kindly, I should say. But, even when I wasn't a season ticket holder going to Giants games, in the Eli Manning eras and eras where we did have a lot of success, this game just felt so amazing. I don't know if it had to have been just because of how poor we've been for so long. The expectation, I had said last week that, and I still felt that way up until probably halfway through the game, because we were still waiting for that perpetual, all right, how are they going to fuck this up? What is the mistake that the Giants are going to make? Or, when are they just going to take the foot off the gas and let the Eagles come storming back? But the expectation going into this game versus what we got was unlike another game I've ever experienced, and it was only amplified, being there in person, Thursday Night Football, going up the escalators into the game, and you hear these Fly Eagle Fly chants, which just digs into your skin when your division rival is taking over your home stadium. So just all of that going into it, and then being able to just pull off an enormous upset. A game that I never in my wildest dreams thought we were going to pull off. And, it just shows that this team at least does have something that they're playing for, and that they do have some fight and resilience. And, a culture win, which I hate that term, but a culture win this early in the season, given the circumstances and the rookie quarterback and everything, is just so much better than a Week 17, season's over, they're resting their starters win that we've seen in previous years. So, it was a real good one for the fans and for everyone to, again, quiet people like me down and kind of, take some of the pressure off of the entire building, the ownership, the head coach, the GM, and the players.
Three things that just popped into my head as you were talking that I'm just going to rattle through really quick. I wish, I could take credit for this part, but I saw a tweet and I totally agree. One compliment, the one nice thing I'll say about MetLife Stadium is it looks really cool for primetime games. When they turn the lights off, especially when they have those bracelets and stuff, like that atmosphere, even pregame, understanding that you weren't sure what was to come yet, but it just looks really sick.
Yeah, and they just started doing that recently, too. I think within the last 2 years, at least, for Giants games, that's when they started, turning the lights off for, the exits and, during halftime and in between quarters. And, it really does, fire you up. You get the lights going, and it really is a really cool atmosphere. I have to agree there.
It is cool. So that's the one pro MetLife. But the other two things that just popped in my head, actually football related. I don't blame you for feeling euphoric about this game, because obviously the upset win and all of that was to come along with that is very exciting. But you mentioned something I think is very important there, which I've mentioned a couple times, like the game that we played against the Cowboys a couple years ago in the playoffs, where your expectations are so low that when they get exceeded, it's not like, hey, I would just like to put up a fight and, let's have a good showing here, and then they win. It's different when your expectations are so low and you have a performance like this. It really is euphoric. It's a great feeling. And then the other thing that I thought of too is, which is very timely, Obviously, you're very impressed with the way that Jackson Dart played, the way that this team is starting to come together. You mentioned the culture win.
Yeah.
On a day like today, where we hear about the Brian Callahan firing in Tennessee,
Hmm.
obviously he has not been there for as long as Brian Dable has been in New York. But a guy who's in a somewhat similar situation, right, of rebuilding franchise with the number one overall pick, mind you, right, not just a first round quarterback like the Giants, but the number one pick.
Yeah.
And he hasn't been able to do anything like that this year, right? So that's got to give you a little bit of confidence. Obviously, not identical rosters, but again, pretty similar situations. So
Yeah, for
I
sure.
would think you'd have to be pleased with what you're seeing.
100%. I mean, I do think the Giants are more talented than the Titans, but no, to your point, I mean, a lot of shortcomings, especially the Giants team in Week 6. I mean, this is a team that our number one and number two wide receivers were gone.
Hmm.
That Wandale Robinson at 5'8" was our wide receiver one, and Lil Jordan Humphrey, who we elevated off the practice squad, was our number two receiver. And I'm happy that he did get signed because he had a couple huge plays from Jackson Dart.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean, just to take a step back and look at it holistically, like you said, I am very, very happy of what I saw with Jackson Dart. I mean, how could you not be as a Giants fan? It's easy to look at the first couple games, and week one, everything was pretty simple. Kept everything, short throws, everything in front of him, just staying ahead of the chains. Obviously, leaning into his legs quite a bit. Same thing with his second week against the Saints. And again, they got off to a really hot start in that game, but then the turnover bug started coming in, and then again, I'd mentioned the combination of lack of skill on the offense and the just the youth infusion that just kind of all turmoiled everything. Maybe I did overreact a little bit about the how bad of a spiral that was. I guess just because of the optics on who the Saints were at that point, and they were
Mm-hmm.
one of the few winless teams at the time. But the Giants were able to, in this game, get off to that same hot start. And again, Jackson Dart making plays with his legs, but not just making plays with his legs running the football, but moving around in the pocket, extending plays, rolling out of the pocket and keeping his eyes downfield, which I think is such a valuable thing. And something that, like, the legs are great, like that'll only get you so far, but you got to be able to throw the football as a quarterback in the NFL. And what he was able to do, again, keeping his eyes downfield and still reading the defense while he's on the run, I feel like is such a valuable skill, and it's how a lot of great quarterbacks make their dues in the NFL. And manipulating the defense by having everyone cheat up to go try to tackle them because you know how much of a running threat they are, and then being able to find receivers over top of them. And it was just a combination again of a great performance by him. The offensive line, which has been sneaky good since Andrew Thomas has come back. Now that he's healthy and he could kind of stay on an island and everyone could kind of double team up and get things going. I mean, everyone else has just been playing so much better than they had to start the season. And we're starting. I'm not the biggest fan of the buzzword, having the identity, whatever, but I had said last week that we had absolutely no identity and that we were just a collection of people, but you saw a little fight. You saw characteristics that made, of old Giants teams that you saw is running the football well. Cam Scadaboo's a beast and is running through people, and great defensive line play, which we got to see a ton of. Brian Burns continuing his dominance. Kayvon Thibodeau has been sneakily good too. He's been making big plays in the run, big plays in pass rush. Like, he has been an unsung, I would not going to say hero, but like an unsung riser this year, especially after people were really down on him last year. So I'm really happy about that. Being able to just make those couple plays on defense. A lot of times where, we're standing around and the ball's on the ground, or we just are in the right place at the right time, but we just can't come up with a play. We were able to make those plays today or not today, on Thursday, and we were able to just make those plays while the Eagles weren't, and they felt they felt like a disjointed team, the collection of talent versus, a cohesive unit. So I think it's partially the Jackson Dart, Cam Scatabo, trying to get the locker room and look, we haven't been part of this losing culture before. Like, this is, I don't want to make this a habit. Like, let's go out there and let's prove to everyone, because, and Dart had said this in his press conference too, that let's change this culture of losing and the negativity surrounding this place, which I love to hear. So not only is he playing well on the field, but he's saying great things at the podium too. And I mean, I was beyond thrilled with Dart, and with, again, the coaching, play calling was so much better than we saw in the beginning of the season, and just overall the effort was better. Everyone was playing hard and playing for each other, which is, I think, the biggest takeaway from that game, and was the reason why they came away with not just a win, an eking out a win, but a pretty dominant win. When you shut out the Philadelphia Eagles in the second half, that is a dominant win, and I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, I don't blame you. You made me think of an old adage that we had in high school football: hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Not exactly the same thing, but teamwork beats talent when talent doesn't work together as a team, right? Like, that's kind of what this game felt like. To your point, it just felt like the Eagles were a bunch of talented guys who were not on the same page. The timing wasn't right. I mean, guys are running wide open. They're on the Jalen Hurts near pick six. Like, A.J. Brown is streaking wide open in the end zone, and it's cover zero, and you think, as Jalen Hurts, if you get a cover zero look, he's got to be the guy you're looking at, right? And that just wasn't the case. So, like, things like that where they just felt disjointed. And I was also, on another note, impressed with Jackson Dart's response. For whatever reason, happened to see his response to that question you talked about in terms of changing the culture. And I really liked the way that he articulated himself, because I guess I was surprised, honestly. There's this whole narrative, right, about him and Scadaboo being like the CTE brothers and
like the frat boy. Yeah.
But he had a really good answer, and I think he answered it carefully as to not throw anybody under the bus, right?
No, exactly.
It wasn't under the old regime. It wasn't this head coach. It wasn't any of these people have contributed to the losing. We need to change it. It was just like, kind of, it is what it is. We haven't won in a while, but we want to change that. I really liked the way that he worded that answer.
Exactly. No, I'm glad you brought that up too. Even listening to Cam Scatabo, I mean, he is a nut. But like, even in the Thursday night broadcast post game, I'd listen to it after the fact, and I mean, he sounds like a normal dude when you're talking to him. He's cracking jokes. He's like, yeah, I am a bit of a lunatic sometimes. Like, me and my brothers used to beat each other up, stuff like that. But he just knows that he could like flick on that switch and just become a madman in between the lines. And like, I love that from the both of them, because now you're seeing, especially in a season without Malik Neighbors, and these two guys are the faces of your team right now.
As corny as it is, if that player's contributing, it doesn't matter. It works. It's contagious. We've seen it in Green Bay with Tucker Kraft. He's a little psycho too. But now that he's like playing and has embraced this leadership role, he's coming over, banging heads with people, getting in people's faces, yelling nonsense at people, but it gets the people going. It's provocative.
No, it does. I mean, there are guys that I have just complained about on end on this podcast for the Giants who, like John Michael Schmitz and even Theo Johnson, guys who are blocking their asses off and finally making plays when it matters. Jalen Hyatt even had a couple of catches too.
Yes.
Who would have thought? And on crucial third downs too, and not just straight running down the field, little speed outs and little things like that. Who would have thought? So, no, it was great to see, man. And again, it was just being able to just go in, head down, because what are you going to say? Well, you can't come back from a fly Eagles fly. It's like, well, we suck, and they have been dominant in the NFL for they've owned us for the last 3 to 5 years. And for us to finally get one against them, Saquon drops his documentary about, how we have to all, cry for him because the Giants didn't want him and whatever. For him to come into MetLife Stadium to expect to just run through us, he really wasn't a factor either. And to shut up those Philly fans and wave bye-bye to them as they're leaving the stadium early was the best feeling in the world. and a crowd that was like, I mean, for I'm not even joking. It was a 50-50, it seemed like, Giants Eagles crowd. But then once all the green cleared out, I mean, it was rocking still. The Giants fans were loud and they were proud, and it got me fired up. And it's the most fired up I've been about at a Giants game, and I couldn't even tell you how long. So it just, gives you some hope. I mean, and it makes every loss, because let's just be honest, the Giants are going to lose plenty more games this season. It's going to make every loss not hurt as bad, because at least you could kind of go back to this game and say, you know what, we are capable of beating good teams. We're not going to win every game against a good team, but at least you go into each game thinking you have a chance. Unlike previous seasons where you're 1-7 in October, November, and the season's gone already, and there's absolutely no hope that you could play any competitive football. At least with this win against the Eagles, you can say that they could compete with good teams.
Yeah. And even last week, right, we looked at the Giants' schedule coming up, and those games where you said, at Chicago, at Vegas, these aren't givens. Well, hey, now they're a little bit more of a toss-up, right? And now those are very much winnable games. And it is funny how your perspective can change, but you're right. Now you've seen the ceiling. Now it's not just, hey, I hope and pray to God that one day we are a good football team. It's like, okay, well, and now I know that the 53 men on this roster are capable of X. So now I not that I'm going to expect that, but I know that it's possible. So that it is the difference, and that's what makes the difference in a season-long, fandom. That's what makes it exciting. And to your point, I think you articulated well the difference between the last few years. Although the record may not end up being different, it'll feel much different.
For sure. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to go repeating myself too much about how jubilated I have been about this, but it is really, really peculiar to me. I kind of want to get into this frame of mind, shifting out of my perspective. But just what is going on with the Eagles right now is very, very strange. Not, I'm happy to win. They are obviously still they're a great collection of players. If you stack up each position group, with the Giants and the Eagles, you would say that the majority of the Eagles players are the better player in each category.
On paper, it's probably like 90% of the position groups.
Yeah, exactly. I'm happy that we destroyed them like this, and we played such dominant football, but I just cannot put my finger on what is going on with them. I mean, whether it's a coaching thing or a scheme thing, but they just look so disjointed. I don't even know.
Yeah, and I know too,
that
if it's like,
sorry,
do they just go through a funk, right? Like we've seen the Chiefs kind of stumble, especially when like some pieces have changed in and out, right? Like the Eagles have gone through some offensive line changes a little bit and some things defensively too. Like maybe that's it, but I don't know. Maybe it's something deeper.
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't seem like their roster had changed too much between this year and last year, like you said, besides the offensive line. But clearly the offensive line, whatever reshuffling or injuries or anything of that matter, it's really affecting them too, because Saquon Barkley has not been having the season he's had last year. I mean, he had 2 runs of 10+ yards that first drive, and then held him to 50 yards the rest of the game. It's just not, so uncharacteristic. The whole narrative of like Jalen Hurts not being able to get receivers the ball. I mean, we kind of saw it evidently on Thursday also. So it's just very strange. I really can't understand. And I mean, that vaunted Vic Fangio defense that was like the number 1 defense in the league last year is kind of pathetic. I mean, Adoree Jackson was getting bodied, and one of the runner-ups to the Defensive Player of the Year, Zach Baun, I mean, we saw him on multiple plays. Jackson Dart juked him out of his shoes, and then Cam Scatterbo just ran through him multiple times. I mean, it just was awful. And I mean, I'm so in for the downfall. I'm even happier about that than the Giants winning the game. But yeah, it's just crazy to see it, and I hope this kid continues, to be honest.
Another odd thing too, I don't know if you saw this today, but Zadarius Smith retired today. He was
I did see that.
like
Yeah.
pressure and sack leader on the Eagles defense thus far this season, and just retires between week 6 and
Oh,
7.
okay. So something is going on in there. I don't know. The Giants also play the Eagles in 2 weeks, so we'll see what happens in round two. I can't say I'm super confident about the second matchup, but I mean, hey, you never know. Maybe this thing takes an even worse turn than we think. That would be something. So
Yeah, you never know.
yeah, but yeah. And speaking of the upcoming games for the Giants, obviously this upcoming week we have before we go back to Philly, we have a date with the Denver Broncos, who I know how talented of a team they are, and they're playing at home, so I imagine they will be much better than they were this past week in London. But I mean, they looked pretty pedestrian against a Jets team that is just pathetic, honestly. Like I think a lot of it has to do with the international travel, but I think again after you beat a team like the Eagles, it's a game that I think the Giants have a chance to win. Again, I don't think they will, but I'm not as hopeless as I was before. I will say that.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, obviously the London trips, you never know how that's going to go for those teams,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm sure that plays a factor. But they looked, like you said, they looked very disjointed. They looked, I mean, Bo Nix didn't have a passing yard in the entire third quarter. Like this isn't the Jets defense of 2-3 years ago, right? Like
No.
it's not. So that's a little concerning if you're a Denver Broncos fan. And to your point, now the Broncos now have to travel back from London. Granted, they're going to be playing at home, but again, that's a lot of time zones. Giants go out west, and we'll see what happens. I mean, there's always a chance. And now you're at the point right now where we're always going to have a chance.
Yeah, which is again more than I could have said any other week this season or the last season or maybe even the season before that. So again, very happy to be where I am, and that's it. I'm grateful, man. I'm fired up, and optimistic John. I thought he was dead for the rest of the season, but he has made another reoccurrence. But I'm being a little more cautious this time. I'm not gonna go. I can't. I got to kind of level out the roller coaster a little bit.
We'll have to have like a win probability-esque graphic of optimistic John, because if I remember correctly, the season was declared dead at 2:30 p.m. week 1. So that was a pretty low point. Then we came back up for the Chargers, back down for the Saints, and now we're back up. So we're gonna have this is gonna look like an EKG by the time
I
we're
was
done
just
with the
about to
season.
say that it looks like a heart rate monitor, but
Which
yeah,
maybe is
well,
apt for what this team is putting you through. But
that is fair. That is. I'm glad you. I'm glad you could at least see why I feel this way. I will say though, I'm not the only person on this podcast that has been a little up and down about how his team has played since the beginning of this season. The Packers. I know you were. We were kind of blowing the trap game whistle last week for the Packers Bengals matchup, and I mean it kind of felt like it for a little bit. They ended up winning by multiple scores, but I'm sure it was a little closer than you would have liked.
yeah, I mean, this has got to be the world's most frustrating team with a 700 win percentage, right? Like, it's for a team that has won 70% of its games this season and has one loss. You would think that I'm happier than where I am right now. Like I saw a tweet recently. It was like, "Wow, that one loss that tie is really coming in handy now because it's second place in the NFC, and we're ahead of all the 4-2 teams." Well, sure, it comes in handy in that regard, but I'd be much happier if we were just 4-1.
Yeah.
I mean, how about that? That's the other alternative. Like, sure, I'm glad it's not a loss, but I'm still pissed it's not a win. So, and that's kind of like summing up how I feel for this game too. Like, of course, I'm never gonna complain about a win, right? Like, we get this rep as Green Bay fans. It's entitled town, and we have such high expectations that nothing is ever good enough. And to a point, that's fair. I think that's reasonable criticism. And
I mean, when you're a Jets, Browns, Giants the last few years, I mean, you could certainly see where we're coming from there.
correct. but it's always the fans of those teams that point those things out, you know? It's never the Chiefs fans that call us Entitled Town. It's the Bears fans and the Giants fans and the Raiders fans. Like those are the people that are calling us out for complaining. And it's a different standard. Like I'm not going to apologize for holding my team to a different standard. When the majority of my life you go into every year thinking that the Super Bowl is a possibility, it just is what it is. It's a different standard. It's not if my goal was to just come out of every game with a win, I'd be thrilled this week. We came out of the bye, had a home game, won by multiple scores, it'd be great. The problem is that's not the expectation. The expectation is that you're going to perform to the best of your ability every week, and when you play the bad teams, that's going to translate to the scoreboard into demolishing that team. And we just have not done that this year. We haven't. We've played to the level of our competition, which has worked out so far in the first two games when we played, teams that were at the upper echelon of the NFC last year. But when you're playing these meddling teams, a team that has struggled to even find a quarterback, one who had a starting quarterback who was with the team for less than a week, those are the opportunities where you need to put your foot on the gas and not let up. And we just haven't been able to do that this year, which is very, very frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think to what you said, given the circumstances of everything, you haven't really had the injury bug. You haven't lost a significant amount of players besides your kicker, and you are going against such a battered, kind of bottom of the barrel team. You want to come out and show why people were claiming you to be in that Super Bowl bubble in week one.
You say that, but I think we've had 7 or 8 different offensive linemen start a game this year. Like, there's been movement. You know what I mean? It's not like nothing has happened, not to mention the kicker, not to mention Jaden Reed's on IR, not to mention Christian Watson hasn't played a game, right? Like, deceivingly, I think we have battled some injuries.
You guys are just so deep. I'm like, I didn't even realize these guys are gone.
Right, and like, you look back at the Browns game and you go, what the hell happened? And you're like, well, Jordan Love threw a silly interception and they got a field goal blocked and all those things. And then you look at the offensive line that they trotted out there against Myles Garrett and the rest of that defense, and you go, oh shit, now I kind of understand why the offense didn't get anything going. But to the opposite of that, this week we had the healthiest offensive line we've had in weeks, and sure, Jordan Love was only pressured on, I think single-digit dropbacks this week. But what did that translate to offensively? Translated to 1.5 drives that turned into 0 points in the first quarter. This is a Bengals team that was giving up 32.5 or so points a game, and we scored 27. Like, it's not quite where you want to be for an offense that, again, is supposed to be in that top tier of NFL offenses this year, or wants to be at least, right? Maybe we're not, but we want to be. And so that's where it's just the disappointment comes in. And then you see some stats like we are the only team in the NFL to hold a double-digit lead in every single game this year. On one hand...
Really? Oh my God.
Yeah. On one hand, that's domination, right? That's domination. And yet, what if I told you we blew that double-digit lead in multiple games this year?
Yeah. I was going to say, when you have the one loss and the one tie, it makes it a lot worse.
Right. So that's where the frustration comes in. Where you again, you're seeing the capability and the ceiling, but you just can't hold on to it. And I was going to hold on to this for later, but this feels like an apt place to bring this up. Listen to how the Packers rank in terms of points allowed in each quarter this season. In the first quarter, they are the only team in the NFL to have not allowed a single point in the first quarter of any game this season.
Oh my God.
Number 1 in the league.
Holy shit.
That's why we have these double-digit leads. That's why we've jumped out 2 leads, right? It's been great. We've dominated the first quarter. In the second quarter, we've allowed the 4th fewest points. Okay, that's pretty good too. In the third quarter, we've allowed the 5th fewest points. That's pretty good too.
Oh no.
In the fourth quarter, we have allowed the 32nd fewest points. We have allowed the most points in the entire league in the fourth quarter of this season. First,
that is
fourth,
not
fifth,
a stat.
and 32nd. So you sit here and wonder why I'm pissed off on a Monday night recording this after a win. That's the kind of shit that pisses me off.
That's brutal.
Can you just close out the football game, please? Can you put your foot on somebody's neck and suffocate them for once? Right? Like, and people wonder why I'm pissed off.
Yeah, and just to play devil's advocate and prod you while you're pissed, this is kind of why you signed Michael Parsons, right? You want him to be that closer. You want him to be the guy that, when your opposing team is down in the fourth quarter, can wreak havoc and try to get after the passer and close out those games without the offense driving down the field.
And this is the thing, too, because up until this week, I would have pushed back and said, well, he's had double-digit pressures in every game, which is true, and he's been a significant impact, even though he hasn't translated himself on the stat sheet, because Rashawn Gary led the league in sacks up until week 3.
Yeah.
Lucas Van Ness had his first sack this week, right? So you're seeing that translate. My problem is, we had like 20 pressures yesterday and 1 sack. So at some point, when do the pressures start translating into sacks or turnovers? Because it gets to a point where I don't give a shit about the pressures anymore unless it's actually causing something. Like, that's great that you're in Joe Flacco's face, but if he just completes every pass while you're in his face,
it doesn't matter.
What's the difference? What's the difference? Mm-hmm. You might as well play patty cake. Like, that's the kind of shit that pisses me off. We are doing good things up until a point. We play good defense up until the fourth quarter. We pressure the quarterback, but we still let him get the ball out of his hands. Like, this is 40-year-old Joe Flacco in front of an offensive line that has struggled mightily against every single team that they've played this year.
This should be the team that you get 20 sacks, not 20 pressures. Oh my God.
One sack. Yep. Like, hello. We have, and I said something incorrect the other day. I said that we had only had 1 turnover this year. We have 2. Excuse me. We have 2.
Oh, yeah.
We had an interception against the Lions and 1 against the Browns. Like, where are the turnovers? Where are we stripping the football? Where are the strip sacks? Where are the interceptions? Like, that's the stuff that's bothering me. Like, again, on paper, and I'm hearing all this talk about this defense, and they're rallying to the football, and they're suffocating, and whatever. But then it just doesn't quite translate. Another fun stat while we're talking about turnovers is that we have won the turnover battle 1 time this season. Once. We haven't lost it all the other 4 games, but like, again, for a defense that's supposed to be one of the best in the league and an offense that's supposed to be one of the best in the league, winning the turnover battle is going to be part of that formula, and it just hasn't been. Now, again, we've lost it 1-0 a couple times, and we've tied 1-1 or 0-0. So, like, it's not like turning the ball over 6 times, but these are the differences. If Jordan Love doesn't throw an interception on the opening drive this week, and you put 7 points on the board, first of all, the final scores, they put up 34, right, which feels like a hell of a lot different. 34-18 feels much different than 27-18. And maybe the whole game is different, right? You go down there and you put up 14 points in your 2 drives, and their first drive sputters, they go 3 and out. They might just lay down and die, like, so these are the kinds of things that, like, as we strive to be one of the better teams in the NFL, we need to clean up the little stuff. Again, it's not like we're turning the ball over 5 times, thank God. But when you have a high standard, I would like to stop turning the ball over at all. And the way that we're doing it, the Jordan Love throw is an ill-advised throw, kind of back across his body a little bit, rolling out right under pressure, trying to force something on 3rd and 5 in the red zone, when you could just throw the ball into the 4th row and take the 3 points. Again, I can't really complain. He has 9 touchdowns and 3 picks. It's not that big of a deal, but it's the little things. So that's something offensively. And before I get into try to be a little bit more positive and talk a little bit more about the offense, special teams. We've talked about it ad nauseum. The one thing this week that just drove me nuts, why is Romeo Doubs returning punts? Can you answer that question for me? Why is your number 1 receiver returning punts?
I cannot, unfortunately. I'm sorry. I don't know
it's
why
also
you're
not
starting
like
receivers.
He's not Percy Harvin. You know what I mean? Like, if he was fast as lightning, I would get it. He's not, though. Like, that's like saying, why is Jordy Nelson returning punts? Or Michael Pittman Jr.?
God.
These are... exactly. Your reaction is... right. What are we doing? Like, nobody else can catch punts? And then the alternative is Matthew Golden, who we've already seen, struggled to return punts this year. He fair caught one. I got my wish. Last week I said, I'll be the first to complain when he fair catches a punt he shouldn't because he was not fair catching punts and making me nervous. Well, he fair caught one when he had 20 yards of room to run.
Why
So
don't they put in the other receiver, Savion Williams? Like, isn't that what you drafted him for? Isn't he like the Cordell Patterson type?
yeah, you'd think. I mean,
It's just a thought.
he's returning kicks for the first time in his career, so he's doing that.
Okay.
But I don't know why you can't return punts. Or Keyshawn Nixon, the all-pro punt returner. I know he doesn't want to, but like, you had Mecole Hardman signed to the practice squad. He can't catch punts? It's beyond me. Beyond me. But anyway, a positive note on the special teams. You mentioned it. Lucas Haversick coming in and clutching up for us at the kicker position when Brandon McManus goes out. There were back and forth all week as to whether or not he was going to play. And for as many kicking woes as we've had over the years, for a guy to come in off the street, literally signed 24 hours before this game, and to not miss a single kick, extra points, or field goals, what a godsend. What a godsend. So just
Yeah, it's huge.
tip of the cap. Thank you very much for your service. I hope he gets a job somewhere else. They were talking about him trying to find a substitute teaching job this week until he got the call from the Packers. So,
That's awesome.
hopefully he gets a kicking job somewhere else. But, very, very pleased with that. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Haversick. Okay, I lied. One more critique before we get into some of the more positive things. Something that I've
Sure.
noticed recently, and I think other people have called this out too with Matt LaFleur, is he's lost his fastball when it comes to being aggressive on fourth down, I feel. I don't know what changed or who hurt him, but, I mean, you have a chance at the end of the first half with just over a minute to go where you have the ball on the Cincinnati 45-yard line against a team that has yet to do anything offensively in this game at that point. And it's 4th and 5. Your defense has been smothering this offense. It's not like you're in your own territory. Put your balls on the line and go for it. Like, I don't know, that felt like a no-brainer to me where I had to get adjusted from the Mike McCarthy era to the Matt LaFleur era where we used to never go for it on fourth down, Mike McCarthy. Like
4th and 5 though is pretty decent of a length. No, I feel like
you have been
I
doing
don't know.
whatever
I mean,
you want with this team. Like, I agree. Ordinarily,
That's
like, different game, different scenario, fine. 4th and 5. But, and again, Brendan McManus is there. You might trot him out there for a 62-yard attempt.
yeah,
right?
fair.
So,
Yep.
That's part of it.
Changes the game plan a little bit.
It does. But, like, I don't know. It felt like to that point the offense had been dominating, the defense had been dominating. Put some faith in your defense. Have a little confidence. Like, I'm usually the risk-averse guy. I'm usually the one going, oh, Matt, I don't know about that. Oh, shit. Really, are we going to do that? But this just felt like such a, like, we were moving the sticks. We had some momentum. Like, just do it.
And
So,
you know what? And that could have been one of those plays too that could have just changed the trajectory of the game.
right.
Because
Put 'em
then
away.
you give up a 4th and 5, and it's like, oh shit, well we're not stopping this offense at all, and then the wheels come off the bus. So you can make the argument for both.
Yeah, and the thing too is like the Bengals got the ball to start the second half, so that's part of what happened is when they came out and they scored on that first drive, it was like, hello, different ball game. But if you convert on 4th and 5 and go score a touchdown, it's a different story. Now, we can argue the if, ands, and buts game all day because then you could say, well, Seamus, what if they don't get it and then they go down and score a touchdown?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Fine, of course, that's the risk, right? And I get it. But it just felt like that would have been a good time to go for it. So, whatever, it is what it is now. But if there was a moment in the Cowboy game where Matt LaFleur didn't go for it on a 4th down 2 and just felt like he's been less aggressive with that this year. So, an interesting thing to track as we move forward throughout the season. Other than the kicker, though, the biggest bright spots in this game were, A, Jordan Love is limber again. The boy can move, and it is very encouraging. I kind of forgot what it was like, honestly, because it felt like every time he stepped up in the pocket last year, he was throwing it away or diving forward for a couple yards because he just couldn't move. Now he's making guys miss. He's moving up and out in the pocket and laterally, and it's just very refreshing. I'm like, okay, now we are fully seeing the quarterback that Jordan Love is capable of and being multidimensional, right? He's not being restricted. And we're going to start to see, as he gets more confident in his legs and moving around the pocket, similar to what you were saying with Jackson Dart, right? Like, this is the game that Jordan Love wants to play, is similar to Rodgers, too. Moving the pocket, getting outside of the tackle box, throwing on the run, using the pump fake, getting defenders to jump in the air, and then going to get an extra 10 yards. That's the dimension of Jordan Love's game that we were missing last year that's only going to get better with time this year. And it was just very much on display this week against the Bengals, which I enjoyed. And then the other bright spot offensively was Matthew Golden. I mean, welcome to the NFL. This was
Yeah,
like
he finally got
his
going.
coming out game. It was great. He had a couple great plays against the Cowboys, and he had one potential for a big play against the Browns, but this was the first week where it felt like he was being relied upon. Turner was kind of locking down Romeo Doubs. They tried to stick with him and go to him a handful of times, and to be fair, he was on him like white on rice. He was playing sticky coverage all day, but Matthew Golden stepped up, was open when Love needed him to be, on short plays, on deep plays, over the middle, to the sideline, kind of everywhere, which is what you need from a guy who, some expect to be the number one receiver here in a couple of years.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I mean, he's your number one draft pick, so you need him to step up like that.
Exactly. And now that you've got Christian Watson on the precipice of coming back, that's going to be very dangerous to have them both on the field at the same time, because you're not going to be able to cover them. Or if you do focus on covering them, oh, hey, there's Tucker Kraft, or hey, there's Luke Musgrave, or hey, there's Romeo Doubs, or hey, there's Josh Jacobs out of the backfield. Like, that's where you start to get the depth of this offense.
Yeah, you reap the benefits of that full offense.
And you know what? For as many times as Jordan Love has targeted players deep downfield and has been, one of the better quarterbacks in terms of throwing the ball deep this year, it hasn't felt like there have been a ton of big play touchdowns, right? So, they'll get a 25-yard completion to move the change, which is obviously fantastic. But I was watching some, Sam Darnold highlights from this week where he's hitting guys in stride for 60-yard touchdowns, and I'm like, that's the part of this old offense with Rodgers that we haven't quite gotten back to yet. I feel like there have been a lot more misses on those to Golden and Watson over the last 2 years or so than there have been hits, and I feel like we're getting to that point now where like that's going to be added back into the repertoire. Like, hey, we're also going to be good for a 4-play 75-yard drive every once in a while because he hit Matthew Golden on a 60-yard bomb 3 plays in. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I don't think we've unlocked yet, and I feel like we're close.
But building towards.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, at this point, by the time I wake up tomorrow, I'll be fully Cincinnati is in the past. A win is a win. It is what it is. You'll learn, obviously, what you can from it, and then we'll move on to next week's game in Arizona.
You'll watch the tape, right? You'll watch the tape.
We'll watch the tape.
My favorite line. Yeah, you'll watch the tape.
It's funny how Matt LaFleur has not made that one of his catchphrases yet.
Because you're not a losing team. Only losing teams say, oh, we got to watch the tape. We got to watch the tape. Sorry, I had to throw that in there.
No, I don't blame you. You're happy, but still a dig where you can.
Yeah, of course. And so who do you guys have next week?
We have Arizona. So
okay.
It could be the Kyler Murray-less Cardinals. However, Jacoby Brissett looked awesome.
I was just about to say that, too. And that was without Marvin Harrison for most of the game, too. Because he left with a concussion.
That game was a little bit on crack. I'm surprised they didn't have the Big 12 logos on the field because there was zero defense being played.
It was crazy, yeah. I mean, but the fact that the Colts still are able to survive these shootouts, too, is not, like, it's just crazy.
I know. And I had them in Survivor this week, which I literally survived.
So you were shaking in your boots. Yeah, you didn't thrive. You survived.
No, I survived. Yes, I was very nervous about that. But Jacoby Brissett did what he does, right? He steps up into these games as the backup. He has never really succeeded as the starter, but when he comes in as a backup is when he plays.
He's always fantastic. Yeah.
So I don't know. That makes me a little nervous. I'm glad we have some tape on him this week, right? Like we weren't the first team to play him like we were with Flacco. Also on that note, glad we beat Flacco. That picture is not going to be circulated of us being the first team to lose to the same quarterback twice in the same year, playing for 2 different teams. He played within the offense. He played very well. He found his playmakers, Jamar Chase, whatever, got the ball out of his hands quick. I expect them to continue to succeed if he can do those things. That's my Joe Flacco note. But again, Brissett, I don't want to underestimate because he looked good against the Colts, threw for 300 yards plus. So it's definitely not going to be a walk in the park, but a game that we should win. These West Coast trips for us are always odd, despite the fact that this is not like fully a West Coast trip, but it's, they feel like they're always fluky to me, so I never want to take them for granted. But again, we're one down, three to go in this 4 game stretch of Cincinnati, Arizona, Carolina, and Pittsburgh, where it feels like you need to go 4-0 in this stretch.
Mm-hmm.
So took
Yeah,
care
and
of
I
one.
mean, the Cardinals have shown that they can be beaten too. I mean, Titans only win. I mean, they barely eke it out against like the Saints and the Panthers too. Like I think that there's much to be had there in terms of coming away with a road win. But again, not to say that it's a gimme at all, especially taking the plane ride. But again, if you are the team who you think you are, you should win this game.
Correct. And I feel like I just have PTSD from going to Arizona because of those playoff losses,
Oh
in
my
the early
God.
2010s.
Some
So
of the most
still,
entertaining games in NFL history, though, I will say.
you're correct. I mean, you are 100% right. I just wish we were, on the better end of some of those.
Yeah, yeah. True.
Hopefully maybe this is our chance, right, to stomp somebody. But either way, let's go into Arizona, get out of there with a win, and just keep this train moving along. Stack the
Keep
wins.
stacking them.
We're
Yep.
back in first place in the division where we belong. We're back as the odds-on betting favorite to win the NFC, the conference this year. So it's all right out there in front of us. Just got to keep taking care of business, and I can look ahead. I just hope they don't look ahead. I'm looking ahead, but they got to take it one game at a time.
As you should.
And focus on Arizona. So that's about all she wrote, I think, for this week for the Green Bay Packers. Now, for a segment we have not touched on at all yet this year, I want to talk a little bit of college football. Because
Sure, it has been quite a long time.
this week feels fitting considering that there were 6 top 25 teams that went down this week. Obviously, the most notable is your Oregon Ducks.
Yeah. It's a tough one. I mean, it just proves that Indiana is legit, which, I mean, you see them beat Illinois, but, 55 points to whatever. I mean, you start to question a little bit. Okay, they beat another ranked Big Ten school. But then to come into Eugene and, win pretty convincingly against Oregon was very impressive. And, it sucks, but I'd much rather lose to them and beat Penn State than the other way around. So,
Fair enough.
but yeah, it was just, it was unfortunate. Offense just could not get going. And, Mendoza, the quarterback for Indiana, just made more plays. He was fantastic again against Oregon this week. So
some
hats
some
off to
untimely turnovers for the Ducks.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's not a season killer, right? Like you lose to a team that's now number 3 in the country. It obviously both playoff teams come the end of the year, I'm sure, barring major collapses from either.
Mm-hmm.
But an entertaining football game nonetheless, and again, not the only top 25 team, not even the only top 10 team to lose this week.
No, a lot of
OU.
movement this week.
OU is the other top 10 team to lose to unranked Texas. Then you had Mizzou and Michigan both losing in the teens, and then Iowa State and Florida State dropping out from the bottom. But a lot of movement here in the AP poll this week, which is obviously exciting, and like this is what you root for in college football, right? And like part of this new playoff process is upsets and finding out who the real deal is, right? And like kind of weeding out the weak and letting that cream rise to the top, so to speak. And so these upsets are where these teams who are going to end up on the fringe of the playoff conversation are going to make their money.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and what's funny too, I haven't said on this podcast, obviously, since we have really been focused on our NFL teams, not so much college, but I made a comment to someone about how the Big Ten landscape now has been so different right now with all of these eastern half of the United States teams now having to travel west for these in-conference games and doing it more frequently. And so far we've seen that a lot of them have not fared very well traveling over. Indiana, of course, being the exception and traveling extremely well and taking care of business at Oregon. So sticking on par with the theme this week, I will eat my words again. But it's been adding, again, it adds a lot more competitive regular season games and just makes everything a lot more interesting going forward. But also to your point, with the new format and the expanded playoff, this one loss to Indiana does not necessarily kill Oregon's season either, which is good, as long as they take care of business going forward. So
No,
not
definitely
super
not.
demoralized, but we'll see what happens.
Especially with the Big Ten championship at the end of the year, right? Like it feels like anything is possible as long as you get to that game.
Yeah. And just strictly coming from an Oregon standpoint, after last year being the, undefeated number one seed going into the college football playoff, where seeding wise, it was just a gauntlet for the Ducks going into that. We had to play a buzzsaw in that eventual championship Ohio State team. Maybe without having that huge target on our back as number one, can kind of, work our way back into it and, assume maybe not the most crazy underdog story, but somewhat of an underdog story in the grand landscape of the college football playoff. But that's the hope
Yeah,
going forward.
hopefully that avoids some of that like peaking too early kind of situation. And I don't know, the Big Ten's going to be interesting this year because they had talked about some of the panelists, the college football playoff committee had talked earlier in the year, I think before the season started, about having four SEC teams and four Big Ten teams in the playoff this year, and then which obviously would leave four spaces basically, for the other three conference champions and then one at large, more or less. But the way that the Big Ten is shaking out, with Penn State falling off the map and Washington not really being up to snuff this year like they had been in the past, you've got those top three teams in Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon, and then there's really no fourth. Like USC and Illinois are hanging around; they're ranked or on the fringe, and there's a chance that they could work their way up by the end of the year with some big wins. But otherwise, like there's really no other team, which as a non Big Ten fan, like makes this playoff push that much more interesting, right? When you have fewer locks going into it is I think what makes this exciting. So
It's also so exciting just looking at the rankings, and I know it's mid-season and a lot can change, but just seeing some new faces up there. I'm pissed that Oregon lost Indiana, but seeing Indiana at 3 is crazy. And you got Texas A&M, who's back up to playing dominant football. Texas Tech, who's in the top 10 now. And there's a lot of other schools that you're not typically used to seeing as we rounding out the rest of the list. You got Virginia thrown in there. Vandy's picking up after a strong season last year. They're kind of staying in that same play. I don't know how the rest of their SEC schedule fares for them. And one of my favorite sleeper teams has got to be South Florida. That just beating up on playing spoiler to all these other Florida teams. It's fantastic. They're just a team that always fires me up. So big,
it's like that Grim
big.
Reaper meme a little bit. They're knocking on the door for all those Florida schools.
Oh yeah, they're working their way through all of them. So we'll see.
The other end of that too, to your point, is not only have some of those, I almost said mid-major, I'm thinking basketball already. Some of those mid-tier right schools are starting to inch their way up. But even think about the preseason AP poll. I mean, 3 of your top 4 or 5 teams, Texas, Penn State, and Clemson, have fallen way off the map, some of whom are not even ranked anymore.
I mean,
So
all but Texas are unranked. So
and they only just snuck their way back in this week. So we have had serious falls from grace as well as elevated play from some of those smaller schools who have switched conferences and are just getting their footing and what have you. But nonetheless, it's still exciting to see some fresh faces.
For sure.
The one thing I wanted to make sure that I brought up while we're talking about the rankings is this nonsense about the fact that Illinois is not ranked and Illinois fans crying that Notre Dame is 13th in the country and Illinois is unranked when they have the same amount of losses. Newsflash, buddy. The Fighting Illini, despite the fact that they have 2 losses to the number 1 and number 3 teams in the country, lost those games by a combined 70-plus points. Notre Dame's 2 losses are to the number 2 and number 4 team in the country by a combined 4 points.
And you've made this argument with me quite a bit about Notre Dame being in there with 2 loses. However, that is just ridiculous. I will side with you there. I mean, you can't
go
lose
argue
by
with a wall.
You can't lose 70 combined points to 2 teams and expect to be on there. I'm sorry.
Right. I don't care who they are. Like,
Hmm.
but you can't get the brakes blown off you like that and expect to be ranked. So that's the part that I just don't get. They're even throwing Texas has 2 losses. I don't get it. Like, come on, come on.
You lost to the best team in the country by a touchdown. Like, come on,
Right.
guys.
Yeah. Let's
Yeah,
be
it's a little
fucking for real
much.
for a second here. So
But let's be talk in the same vein though. Huge prove it game for the Irish this week. I mean, you got the 2 losses already. You got a ranked opponent coming into town, rivalry game. Let's see it. What are you really
yep.
made of?
No, you're right. You're 100% right. And this they said it on the broadcast a couple times this week, and unfortunately, I haven't been able to watch Notre Dame as intently as I had hoped to this point in the year. Just coincidentally, I've had stuff going on kind of every weekend for the most part, and I've only caught glimpses of games, but watched a decent chunk this week. And they said it a couple times on the broadcast. It feels like this Notre Dame team is just now starting to click a little bit. And if you watched, early in the year, obviously they played these teams close. Who, Miami has a bunch of new faces, so they were starting to click too. I'm sure they're much better now than they were when we played them. Texas A&M is playing good football. So again, the same could be said for everybody. But Notre Dame has a freshman quarterback playing. Like I think that goes unspoken because you hear of Bryce Underwood and Arch Manning, all these other young quarterbacks, right? CJ Carr is getting no respect, and he is playing his butt off for Notre
He
Dame
looks
and
good.
is only getting better every week. And this defense, without Al Golden now, who's with the Bengals, the former defensive coordinator, we have now Chris Ash, the former Rutgers head coach, has taken a while to get its legs under it. It hasn't felt like the same tenacious, dominating defense that Notre Dame has had, the last year or so since Marcus Freeman took over. And allegedly, they've all been a bit introspective and kind of looked themselves in the mirror and said, we know we're not the same defense, and why is that? And like we need to figure out how to get back to that. And again, even this week, getting off to a slow start, it was 7-7 at one point against NC State at home. Like, and I'm thinking, oh God, maybe this is just one of those years. Like CJ Carr needs another year, and we're just going to take a step back, and like it is what it is. And then, they end up starting to get going and the defense makes some stops and you force some turnovers and all of a sudden you're like, okay, here's the dominance that we have been kind of waiting for. And you're starting to see, you know, them stack big plays offensively and defensively and get some momentum going. And those are the kinds of plays and series and I don't even know what the right word is, but like because it wasn't the full game, but those chunks of time, right, and those plays and series that you can string together that I think could start some momentum here cross game. So to your point, huge game this week. It's the season, right? If you lose, you're out of the playoff, and all is lost. You're playing in the Tax Slayer Bowl come December. So this is the biggest one. Everyone's big for here on out. You have to win out, but this is the biggest one. You have to impress on the national stage against USC when everybody is watching, when the lights are bright, because otherwise you're going to get this conversation for the rest of the year that Notre Dame does not belong. So, a win is a win. I'll take a win, and I think as long as you win, you're fine. But a win by multiple scores would be great, even if it's 10, right? Like you win by 10, I think that looks good enough. You win by 40, it's better, but that's not really what I'm expecting. Right?
Yeah, I don't know how realistic
I don't
that
think this
is
is.
either.
I still don't think this is quite the Notre Dame of old, but they're getting there, which is encouraging. So we'll see. It's going to be an exciting game to watch. I'm very much looking forward to it. I really don't know what to expect. Honestly, USC's been playing better too, so we'll see. But I'm very excited and I'm optimistic. Why not?
Yeah, but with that said, I think that's about it. We got some good things to look forward to, both NFL and college football wise. We got our first little college football segment in the podcast this year, which is kind of crazy. I feel like we never go that
I
long
know.
without bringing it up, but no, good stuff, and we'll see what happens after a huge college football weekend, and see if we see any more movement going forward. But until we get some of those answers, we're going to sign off. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please turn on new episode notifications so you never miss an episode of Decleated. And you can follow us at DecleatedPod on Instagram, TikTok, and X, and at Decleated Podcast on YouTube.